a lot of times those big breakthroughs, those big successes have been after a major failure. But we put up these walls emotionally in ourselves that are blockers, and they're all by fear. And usually the fear is made up in your head. Comfort, is a prescription for complacency, right? We're so trained to feel sorry for ourselves and be victims. And yeah, it's a choice. In life, there are only events that happen. It's the emotions and the actions that we attach to those events that determine if they were a positive or a negative thing.
Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to talk to my guest today because he has a great story about how he's overcome a lot of challenges and become a serial entrepreneur. And he caught that entrepreneurial bug at 16 years old. His name is Jeremy Delk, and he made millions of dollars early on when he first started day trading, but he lost millions of dollars during the dot-com bubble. But since 2001, his businesses have made hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, created hundreds of American jobs, and earned a number of distinctions along the way. Delk Industries is now a venture capital firm with holdings in biotech, consumer brands, technology, and real estate development, just to name a few. And his book, Without a Plan, a memoir of unbound action and failing my way to success, tells his story from being a primary school kid from a blue-collar family to making it to the boardroom of a highly successful VC firm. And he joins me today. Thanks for being here, Jeremy. It's great to meet you.
Thanks for the intro, Adam. And thanks for having me. In the green room there, just kind of talking through what the whole thesis of your of the podcast is about, with fear and these pieces. I mean, I think it's something that I live with and we all live with as entrepreneurs. So I'm really excited to kind of share some of my wounds, I guess, right? Stories
Sure.
or wounds, depending on how you look at them.
Yes. I mean, I guess it is from the wounds. And I've always heard the phrase before that, don't share from your wounds, share from your scars. I tend to like that. I'd love to hear about some of those scars, but I guess that may be a good place to start. I'd love to get into your full backstory and everything, but what are some of the fears you've experienced in life? Like, how have you experienced fear through your entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think you mentioned the book. The subtitle, the subheading of the book is a memoir of unbound action and failing my way to success. And I've, through sitting on a lot of couches and spending hundreds of $1,000s on therapy, right, over the years, I'm a genius now, right? But it's all hindsight when you look back over the last 20 something years. But I think we all as humans are, by the most part, the same, right? And we all have this innate fear. I think a lot of it is due to upbringing, right? And how we're raised, whether it's from in school or parents, and this whole idea that failure is such a fucking bad thing that you don't want to, you want to avoid failure like the plague. And it's scary because what if I fail, right? And what is someone going to think about me? What is Adam going to say? What is my mom? What's my wife? And it's all this outward reflection. And the reality is no one really cares about you. They care about themselves, right?
Right.
But no one cares. Like they I mean, it's interesting. You hear a headline and it's fun then, but then they go back to their own self and their own problem. So the moment I found, there's several moments, but a lot has come to me with this kind of clarity that once you get comfortable being who you are and accepting that's who you are and just be the best version of yourself and fuck being anything other than that for anyone else, the moment you have that, and then especially even using as a filter of who you have in your life, because if they don't like you, I mean, I'm the most loyal person, honest, I probably give too much, but I that's how I brain. If you're on my good side, if you're not, I have nothing to do with you and you're out. I'll keep my circle small, but I don't need to make everyone happy. And the moment you go to the moment you can kind of say like, all right, this is who I am. That's what I want to be. And I'm comfortable with that. That's the first piece. The second is, think about, success in this podcast, success in your business or your audience, anything that you've had, a lot of times those big breakthroughs or those big successes have been after a major failure, right? Because that I feel firmly, and there's tons of books that is the real part when you learn. You mentioned making all this money at the .com. I didn't learn fucking shit making that money. I learned a lot losing it, right? I learned a lot losing it because you're blind. Like I was a 19-year-old kid, $1 million in the bank, day trading, making 30 grand a day on a Palm Pilot. You can't tell a 19-year-old kid anything anyway. Give him that kind of ego, right? And like I was impossible. You couldn't do anything. So like, thank God, and that was in the time the scariest. I'd made that money from $30,000 inheritance from my dad had passed away. So not only did I lose all that money, like I lost like all the money my dad left me. I just like the biggest piece of shit is how I felt. Like I'm just a loser. I've done all these things, and then after like self-loathing, then it's like fuck. I had bought a condo my freshman summer, right? Who does that, right? 20-foot ceilings and marble fireplaces, and had a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee. So I had actual expenses now that an average 30-year-old had, not a 19-year-old in college. So then that failure started going through. Like I'm a failure. I'm a loser. I lost all this stuff. Now I've got this fear of how am I going to make rent? Because my mom would give me the shirt off her back, but that's all she had, right? There wasn't anything that she could do to save me. All of those things that happened for me, not to me, that happened for me, was probably one of the top 2 or 3 things that's ever happened to me in my life. Because had I gotten bailed out by, even though my mom didn't have the money, so it wasn't even an option, but if she would have, if she had it, she would have, and that would have been a bad result because I wouldn't have had to learn. I wouldn't have had to go figure it out myself. And I was you hear that fork in a road type of analogy. I could have went home. Like I could have, sold the condo. Actually, I did sell the condo a few years later. I moved to New York and made, good money on it. I could have sold the condo, dropped out of college, and moved home with my mom. Like that was a viable option. I would have been, then I just permanently tattooed that failure for the rest of my life. Like that's what I did, that decision. And that for me was worse than anything. Like there's no fucking way I was going to be the first kid in my family really to graduate for college. Other than my mom, who went back to school later in life. She had a 2-year associate's degree. And that was really the motivation piece. Like, hey, if she did it, fuck, I better not mess that up. Or go figure it out. And that was, the piece that was super scary. And I talk about the books, all the different odd jobs and all the different things. And you don't know how the path is going to take you, but you just have to get started and just kind of keep moving forward, because that led to a career on Wall Street, short, but very successful. And after that short, career living in Manhattan and Chelsea, where it just came from, that gave me the courtesy as a 21-year-old. So I'm 43. I've started Delk Enterprises nearly almost 25 years ago. There's no way I would have had the ignorance, balls, fear, the drive and courage to go and do that if I didn't lose that money. So like so many people in your audience is trying to go through and figure out, all right, well, what's my next chapter? What do I want to do, Adam? Let's have this flow over fear. And like, how do I just go over and get that? I couldn't have. There's no fucking way. People like, I would have been paralyzed. And look at someone that's in their 40s now with family. We talked about my kids. I got, 2 kids and one on the way. You got responsibilities. You got all those things that it's so hard, especially when you're responsible for other people. But for me, it was the perfect storm because I was 21 years old. I'd already made it back. I fucking lost everything. Now I'm on Wall Street, 21 years old. I got money again. And I proved to myself, well, fuck, that's literally what I said. If I go out and start this thing, it cannot be fucking worse than that. That was it. It can't be worse than blowing it all up. Yeah. And that's it. So I don't, now this is not a recipe to go and blow $2 million on some stocks.
Don't try to do it.
There's cheaper ways to learn this. But the idea is we've all had those moments right? But as humans, we are so, programmed for self-protection that we block those, right? We forget how short life is until we go to the funeral, we mourn, you go have a bereavement dinner, and then the next day we forget about that. And we forget about that pain, that loss. And everyone says, oh, it's fucking, they're too soon or can't go through. And we fucking forget about it until the next thing happens, as opposed to embracing it and be like, fuck, we're not promised tomorrow. Let's go. Let's just get started. And that thing when I lost my job and, I didn't lose a job, but if you're your listener, like, hey, I lost my job and it was a fucking worst day ever. Like, we've all had those things. Everything else in the world sucks until it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Remember the till it didn't. Remember those, right? And use that as your fuel to go and figure it out. And I think also, so that's the thing, just getting started. I know it sounds simpler than it is, but we put up these walls emotionally in ourselves that are blockers, and they're all by fear.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the fear is made up in your head because it's not truly what it's what everyone else is going to think. What if this? What if it doesn't? What if it doesn't happen? I don't know if Steve Sims, he's a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know Steve. I don't know if he quoted it or he's a fucking thief too. You can't trust a British guy. But so he fucking probably floated. No, I'm joking. But someone said, I remember it's to Steve, so I'm going to give the credit to him. But like the definition of hell is when you die, like seeing a movie of what you should have been or could have been. Like that was like crazy, right? Imagine that. It's like all things. So like that's my piece. Like, yeah, what if it does fail? What if it doesn't? What if your idea changes the world? What if your idea changes your whole family history? That expense, cost, risk is fucking way more than the bullshit of what fucking Larry, Curly, or Mo's going to think of you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I mean, and I'm so glad you brought that up to start this off, because we all do struggle with that. I still struggle with that a lot today, even though I have a show called Flow Over Fear, where I'm trying to talk about it. Is this idea we get caught up in this idea of like, well, that's too risky. I might lean into comfort here. But what I'm hearing through that is that if, that those challenges that you experience, that those obstacles or those setbacks, those even as significant as losing everything, can ultimately become platforms for how to grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think comfort, is a prescription for complacency, right? And that's what's going to happen. And then you just get, nothing there. That's why I probably have investments in so many different businesses and so many different things I love. And part of me for entrepreneurship and this serial, component of just doing it is I'm curious. I love learning. I love trying new things. I come in this. So that for me is the reward, like the scoreboard and lifestyle and some resources and some money comes with those things sometimes, not all the time. But for me, it's not about that as much as like the curiosity, right? And that wanting to go through. And look, I've said this all the time on stage, right? And you mentioned this in the green room, but I talk about wanting to do more, see more, and be more. Like that's been ingrained in me. I don't know why. I think part of it is, some childhood trauma, right? Losing your dad, young age, stability to massive instability, not wanting that anymore, repeat the cycle, like those things, I think probably instilled a lot of it. But again, I'm not special. I'm not unique. We all have something inside of ourselves. And we all have a journey that we want to go on and just get going, right? Because so many people just don't.
Yeah. Well, what is, and you kind of touched on that just a moment ago, but what is it that makes that? Because you started early. You started at 16, starting to invest, in the markets and everything. And it comes on the heels of your father dying. I don't know what the timeline is there. He died when you were young. So when you were 7, did that kind of shape your perspective on just needing to kind of take the reins, or what was it about your childhood that led you to just wanting to lean into entrepreneurship so early?
So it's not. So I'll answer it a couple of ways. One, I mean, I think my dad owned like engine shops, right? And would do and just it was called just going through. It was literally called the engine shop, and they would go through and just do regular blue collar type of stuff. My grandfather did that on my mom's side, and my other grandfather, who I didn't really ever get close with until later in life. He actually did real estate. He was actually a pretty successful entrepreneur in his own right. So I think I got it honestly from that to a degree. When I was 7, so I didn't figure this shit out until sitting on some lady's couch, Valerie Aru, who I love. It's not just some way. She helped me fucking my crazy self. But I think it was going from that, what was so nuclear, safe, stable, even though it was in the chaos, you don't know. But I had a mom, I had a dad that came home at night. We had dinner. We had a nice house. We had a dog. Like we had that thing, you know what I mean? It wasn't like some Brady Bunch, but it was a pretty safe life. My mom, very young mom, didn't work. And what was just normal stability, you can't recognize. No one can recognize stability. But you could fucking recognize instability, especially when you've had it. Maybe someone who's never had stability, they don't know anything, so it's a chaos. But when you've had some stability and you've got this massive instability and fear, like, yeah, I had to become the man of the house. And we still had family around us, so it was good. Like we weren't out on the streets, but we went from a nice house to a smaller house to a smaller house to an apartment to a shittier apartment, right? And I think the motivation for me initially was money, because I saw lack of resources. So like I could solve for that. Like if you have fucking money, I won't have any of this fucking shit where my mom has to work third shift and whatever. So it was literally like problem solution. As we know in life, fucking it doesn't just work out that way. But that was the initial thing as his teenage self as mine coming through. So my mom there was life insurance. He had a motorcycle accident. And so that's where that $30,000 came from. And I knew I was getting that. And my mom had put that in like a mutual fund in the Disney stock, which it did okay for us. And that combined with wanting to make money, Sinatra, right? If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. I wanted to go to New York. That's where Wall Street was. And the only thing living in a small town in Bardstown, Kentucky that I knew about New York was the mafia and Wall Street, because that's all there is, right? Maybe some pasta. So like I wasn't probably had the right last name to be in the mob. So Wall Street was the path that I wanted to go on. So I was just starting to read Investor Business Daily and Wall Street Journal. And then my mom actually gave me access to start trading stocks. And I was just looking at message boards, and it was very small at first, just kind of going through. And then because I was still in high school, right? So I couldn't really do much. But then in college, like you're in the market, you've had a Palm Pilot, and you're going to computer labs, you had internet. This is when Ameritrade, now it's E-Trade America, they merged, but this was Ameritrade that we were using. And it was in there, and it was like addicting, and the market was going up. So it was like, it was crazy. But that whole component, and then I was in school in Providence, Rhode Island, and then I lost it all. Ended up going to Boston through a sequence of events I talk about in the book. That would that's why it's called Without a Plan, because you can't make this shit up. And that ended me on at Wall Street, right, as one of the youngest institutional traders in Fidelity history, right?
Wow.
Which is I couldn't have wrote the business plan to get there at 17. But I just said yes. Sometimes I said yes because I have a fucking choice.
Right.
Sometimes I said yes because I didn't have, any fear, or I had that kind of confidence. So yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting story too. How you went from kind of becoming the day trader, at 19, losing everything. And then how you came upon becoming a trader at Fidelity.
And dude, when I'm going through, and because I learned autographically. A lot of people do, so I just don't. I don't like to read. But so in college, I would actually sample courses on what they taught off of the lectures or the books, and I wouldn't take any books because I didn't buy books. I would just fucking sit in the classroom, listen, go through, and I would do well. I got a 4.0, and I was good at that. Fucking went to Boston, and they're like, literally, I can't get the fucking camera. Where I can't get this, but like, you can't. It's bigger than this. Like, it was just massive amount of books and debt, equity, and like, you have to read these. And like, they paid me to learn. They paid me to learn, so I bullshit my way enough through, and I did. I knew what I was talking about. I had a sense of the market. Didn't know everything about the market, but I had a sense, and that's what they're looking for, right? It's actually pushing a button. You got to have that little bit of a vibe, and that's what they were blown away with at such a young age, because I lived it, right? But so like, yeah, dude, we'll pay you, but you get two cracks at this, and you fucking don't pass. Fucking see you later. So I had to fucking go and start doing night school, because like they're not gonna fucking let me do this night. So I started working Fidelity in the day, studying, learning, and dude, reading all this shit just to show you how fucking stupid I was. I mean, my day trading strategy was like long, short positions. I wasn't even doing any options, I don't think. No, it wasn't options. It was, I had stop losses, right? That's what I had. That was the complete architecture to a multi-million-dollar day trading strategy. So I'm reading all this and learning. I'm thinking like, what the fuck? This is like a cheat code. If I knew all this shit, like, so thank God, but I would have never read that to kind of get through it. But yeah, it was so funny, like putting it back together. Like, well, fuck, this shit's easy. But still to this day, I don't trade. I know, I know what I do good at. I can make impact in small, medium-sized businesses and start up. And, I've been an early investor and lucky to get in like some Uber and 23andMe. But the day the lockup's over, I get out of the market. Cause it's gambling, right? This whole thing with crypto and all this shit, it is gambling. Investing, look, Buffett knows how to do it. And again, how wealth is created isn't that way, right? It's diversification bullshit, right? Be fucking laser focused on what you're doing. That's how everyone that has wealth, they did it very fucking narrowly. Then they diversified into shit, right? I like real estate because it's mailbox money. Like so find what you like, but all the money I've made it, right?
Yeah.
Isn't from putting it from this thing to getting a 20x.
Yeah, because you seem pretty diversified now. I mean, so you've done the growth with a focused manner. What was the shift like when you moved from Fidelity to starting, your own business, and maybe expanding those businesses? What was the focus at the start? How did that go?
So again, like, I was on Wall Street. I was making a lot of money, respectively, but twice as much as my mom and my stepdad. Pretty fucking good. Live in New York City, single. So I was living a good life, but I had all these ideas, and you hear me speak now, right? I don't sound like I'm from Kentucky. That was on purpose in the end, and Fidelity was probably the reason why, because I had all these ideas, and I would keep running them up the flagpole and say, "You're my boss, Adam." Like, Adam, listen, what if we did this? And it's just like, dude, yeah, kid, shut the fuck up. Like, great idea going through. And this is a dude that's been through. I'm like, motherfucker, this thing works. I'm telling you. And then like, all right, maybe I sound like a fucking hick, right? Maybe like I just fucking, I'm not articulating it well. You're not listening to me. So I actually became a bit of a chameleon and tried to change the inflection in my voice and how I speak, my accent, my dialect to a degree. That's why I sound probably more like a New Yorker than I do from Kentucky. And then that still didn't work. And that's when I really kind of had the blessing of, I talk about these top 2 or 3 things that happened to me in my life. That was one of them where I felt myself fucking dying, because I can see it. It's fucking Pavlov's dog or whatever social experiment you want to go through. If you keep asking me something, Adam, I keep hitting you on the fucking head, eventually you're going to fucking stop coming. And that's corporate America, right? If you're in a job right now, you're fucking know exactly what it is. And sadly, you may be hitting too many times where you're punch drunk and you don't know any better. And I knew that if I stayed there, I'm fucked and I wouldn't be happy. I'd be rich. I was just in New York with my friends and they're very wealthy and they don't fucking work. And maybe who was right? I don't know. I'm happy. They're fucking happy. So everyone has their own journey, but fucking, yeah, that was it. So, not very, so that's the why and the thought process. This goes back to this thing you mentioned, like all these accolades. I was Inc. 500 fastest growing company and all these different things. All that's bullshit. The basic pretense is just a fucking step. So how I started Delk Enterprises was I was never smart enough to be this visionary. And I mean, I love to have big visions and big ideas, But Delk Enterprises, I never imagined it could be this fucking big. I never had a fucking clue that this is where I would be setting on a podcast with you 20 something years later. Which is why I aptly named this book Without a Plan, because if sometimes the plan A doesn't go to plan, but what if it's the wrong fucking plan? Like my plan would have been so much smaller if I would have just run at Target. I just fucking started. So I was making money, not enough money to be a New York real estate developer, but where my money went far in Kentucky. So I was sending money home and I was buying and building spec houses, like single family, fourplexes, some cutting in new roads and selling residential lots. So I was doing that. Another buddy of mine was leaving Wall Street. He was with Dreyfus, I think. And his family had been in the lumber business for 80 something years. And his family, he was getting out of it too. He was just burnt out. He was going to take over the lumber, not the lumber business, but a high-end window and door business in Long Island that was going to start up. I literally, the basic pretense was like, hey, bro, you sell windows. I'm building shit with windows. Let's fucking team up, right? That's how it started. Quickly did we, and I knew nothing about Windows other than it went up and down. Now I can tell you anything about Windows you want until you're bored. But that's how it started. And then that was so much fun. I learned a lot about business then, right? That's really true, straight. It was a retail business at first. Then we went into wholesale distribution. Then we went into manufacturing. So like all the things within business, like I did them in there and we learned, fucked up a bunch of stuff. But it was a great learning. And for me, it was literally that whole idea of seeing something on paper and these plans with these architects. We did Calvin Klein's house. Carl, I got like some big shit. And I'm a fucking kid from Kentucky with, again, there's a theme here. No formal training in fucking stocks. I'm fucking making changes and stuff, but people liked them. I don't fucking know. And anyway, I would see something on a blueprint, go to a job site, and then see something created. And that was the definition of seeing something, as opposed to not making anything but money on Wall Street. We were making shit. We were making people happy. I saw something, an idea, a vision. We changed this. This was my idea. And I got so much fulfillment out of that. Made fucking $6,000 my first year. Right. So it wasn't the money. And I was so much happier. So the whole money doesn't buy happy. I can tell you I didn't love eating through my savings, but yeah, that was it.
Hey everyone, I interrupt this program to introduce you to a powerful tool that will help you gain clarity on your vision and accelerate your growth and achievement. If you're listening to this show, it is likely that you have an exciting vision for your life. But the problem is that we often get caught up in the day-to-day. We get distracted, we face uncertainty, overwhelm, and self-doubt. And as a result, the gap between where you are and where you want to be seems insurmountable. And that's why I created a framework for how you can turn your vision into strategic, disciplined action that will accelerate your results in the next 90 days. I call it the Vision Reflection Retreat. It is a 2-day solo excursion designed to reignite passion and adventure into your busy life and realign your focus toward your why. This is the very same framework that I use every 90 days to reflect on my own life and my vision and set my goals for the next quarter. And it has been a game changer. And the good news is that I'm giving away this Vision Reflection Retreat guidebook for free when you sign up for my newsletter. Simply go to flowoverfear.com/retreat and download your free guide and enjoy the journey.
Well, that's fascinating. I'm hearing a couple of themes there. And you mentioned like not really having the vision for where it was going, but you talked about earlier just this curiosity that you have. You're a curious person, and what I'm hearing through all that too is resourcefulness. So it's not necessarily like, I know plenty of people who are book smart, who have nice jobs or whatever, and they live their life, but it feels like that curiosity and resourcefulness is really what kind of maybe takes you to that next level. Do you agree, or do you see it differently, or how do you feel about it?
Absolutely. And then that's you talk about discipline.
Yeah.
I've got no discipline. That's not true. I have things that I have to do. Otherwise, like I have to go to the gym or I just hate my life. Right. Cause you can have habits. Everyone has habits, by the way. they're fucking either good or bad ones, right? So I try to kind of formulate those. But one thing as it relates to business and a discipline is that even though I've had resources, I think, and you've seen this play out with SPAC land and some of these stocks at these fucking crazy valuations, et cetera, that, look at WeWork. I mean, like, just cash at everything and growth at all cost isn't real, and it is never sustainable. It'll work and you can make some money out of it. So I don't, if you're in it for the hack, it'll work, but it's not sustainable. So I always try with my founders, business I own, invest in, advise in, bank in on this cash starved mentality. That, yeah, look, if we need a lifeline and we need to make payroll, like, I'll kind of come through. But what that does is it forces you to be, to use your word, resourceful, but it forces you just to make better decisions. Because, like, hey, if I've got this $10,000 as opposed to $1 million, if I've got this last 10 grand, and this 10 grand, I need to think of where I'm going to put it to get the return. You're going to fucking think about that a lot more than if you got $1 million slug. That 10 grand that you push for, you're not going to give a fuck. It's like, yeah, bullet.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a new perspective. I haven't really heard a lot before, because I hear, especially today, a lot about, cash is king. You have to fill this cash bucket and all that kind of, this kind of stuff. But this idea of almost like being cash strapped to force yourself into better decisions, force yourself into resourcefulness, that's kind of a new idea that I haven't heard before. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, cash is worthless.
Cash is worthless. Oh, interesting.
Cash is worthless.
Yeah. Okay.
Now it sucks. I mean, cash flow is a different thing, or having cash flow and income, whether it's real estate or businesses, that's important. But you're never gonna, like, and this is a guy that's 43 and still, like, goes through those ebbs and flows of cash crunches, right? But, like, because you're growing, and, like, you ask my wife, like, why isn't it enough, Jeremy? And it should be, but it's not about the thing. It's not. It's just the fucking journey. Like, that's the thing, that if you don't have this fucking crazy shit in your head that unfortunately entrepreneurs have, you don't understand it. Because yes, honey, it is enough, and we don't need to. But fuck, I'll be pretty miserable. You're not going to want me around the house if, like, if we're just. But what am I going to do? Fucking sit home? We'll fucking just like, that's a piece of that. This is the piece that drives me, that fuel. And it sucks. And every time I'm in the cash crunch, like right now, we're doing a bunch of really cool things and we're flowing, but it's going to come again, likely. And it's like, fuck, why do I do this to myself? And then you remember, like, oh, well, fucking, it's because this is the outcome of it. So, but on the caching, it makes you lazy, right? Then you get consultants for consultants, and you're like, well, fuck, what are we doing here?
Yeah. That's helpful. I mean, especially, I'm running a business that's not necessarily growth, a big high growth company. It's a 100-year-old business. We're really, 4 generations. And it's kind of just a workhorse. So there's not a lot of sexy things that are happening there, as far as, like, cash isn't just coming in, and we're not building like the WeWork style stuff that you're talking about. But but the idea that we kind of manage this stuff, and we're looking at the metrics, we're looking at the cash position and our cash flow, and kind of making better decisions there. What you're talking about really resonates. I think that makes a lot of sense in this phase of where you're going. And to your point about the why are you continuing to do it if when there's enough. I mean, I feel that on a deep level, because I'm 44 as well, so we're about the same age, and yeah,
you've got better hair for the non.
You're not looking at the back.
Watchers.
I got a big old bright spot right back here. You won't want to see it, yeah. But I'm going to need to go your direction pretty shortly here. But I think, I mean, but to that point, it's like, the idea of, like, even with if we had everything in the world, like, just like everything to live off of, and we could just go to a beach somewhere. Yeah, you're right. That feels miserable to certain people that want to continue growing. How is that? So how does that look for you? You talk about failing forward a lot, failing upward a lot, and that kind of thing. What is that perspective of failure? How does that bring, you or bring you to more growth?
Well, I think it just, the growth is the courage, right? Because, like, hey, you remember the failures, you diagnose them, right? And kind of, I could do an autopsy is what I say, like do an autopsy on this deal. The good ones too. Like it's okay to look at the wins, but you won, right? You fucking, and you're not going to really look at what you won. You're just going to say, oh, I won because I'm fucking awesome, right? Like when you lose, like, hey, this week didn't happen. Like really do that autopsy and that self-reflection. So most people don't do it. Like, oh, fuck, let's never look at that again. Like, well, okay, how do we go through and make sure we don't, do it again? I think that's a big piece from the failure and trying to have that learning perspective from it and not get beat up of it, man. Because again, I've had some bad ones, dude, and like they suck. And even me, who thinks I'm halfway intelligent and knows better, dude, I've been in the dumps like I fucking suck. I mean, like 5 years ago, like I've been in that headspace, but and it's okay, and you need to feel those emotions. So I'm not saying block those emotions. I try to feel them fucking quicker. Yep, I fucking suck. You horrible. I cry. Let's get over this shit. Yep, okay. Let's do it. All right. I'll be out for a day, right? As opposed to a month and they just change your whole thing. Because nothing is, once you understand that feeling bad for yourself and fucking woe is me doesn't do a motherfucking thing for fixing your shit. Once you can do that, all you want to do is get through that piece as quick as you can do, right? So like, I don't like that piece. Sometimes you got to fucking do it. All right. Yeah. And then even though you know better, like this is fucking stupid, but I'm still going to be miserable. We'll go do it and then just hopefully get through it quicker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you see a lot of people too. And that I mean, I feel that failure too. Like when shit doesn't happen like the way you want it to happen or something, like, and you're just like, gosh, or you lose a lot or you're just like with a huge transition. Kind of gets back to what we were talking about earlier when you experience that, it's an opportunity for growth. But we see a lot of people, I think, that just kind of lean into that victim mentality and just become victims of their circumstances. And I just see that, and I see people's worlds start to get smaller and smaller and smaller.
It's super easy to be. I mean, it's so easy. We're so trained to feel sorry for ourselves and be victims. And it's a choice, and it's okay. It's still my fucking choice, right? And I think, and as long as you can talk to, and I mean, the business partner, I'm still friends with him. We sold the company. He's there, but he's the most negative fucker you've ever met, right? I mean, literally, he wins the lottery. He bitch about the taxes. Like that's solely the reason that we got out of fucking business together. Because I just fucking couldn't deal with the negativity. Like I just can't. I don't. That's okay. I'm telling you, you're hurting yourself, but you can't fix it. Fucking okay, but you're not gonna fuck me, right? I think that's the thing, and that's where I don't believe in cutting people out of your life, but you can set boundaries up to when you take them, right? Maybe that's something that like you have that person that calls you every day. Stop fucking taking the call. Not ever, but take it once a week now. Now they're gonna say, well, I've got a week with them. Do I want to bitch about this or do I want to actually connect, right? And then if it's they so bitch, give them 2 weeks, right? But you're still not cutting people out of your life. But dude, that shit does transfer. That energy transfers over to you, like osmosis. You can't get rid of it sometimes. So like, just you gotta stay away from it.
Yeah,
it's not productive.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean that I feel like forces like yourself, forces like people that are positive, even in the face of failure or challenge or anything like that still lean into the optimism, push forward and push forward. I feel like that energy gets consumed by negativity a lot of times. If you're, so you have to be disciplined. I'm talking about discipline. You have to be disciplined about setting those boundaries.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And what about boundaries? This is good. I know the show, I know we're kind of running on time, but like the other piece on there is I can control boundaries to my second cousin that I fucking don't have to deal with. But fuck, I got a bunch of employees. Probably you do too. So how do you fucking set boundaries with these assholes? Like, fuck, what do I do? And you can't. That's the thing. You can't because that's not healthy. But what I do is I like proving people wrong. Like maybe that's just entrepreneur me. And I seen it happen, right? Because like we'll go through and we have this idea, like, hey, this is what we want to do. How are we going to do it? No fucking clue. Like the people that are so planned, it makes them squirm. I get so much joy out of it. Or like, oh, we're getting a lawsuit or this thing. Oh, they're like fucking up. All right, cool. Well, it's gonna be interesting how this works out. Like I don't put no emotion to that shit. And they're like, what the fuck? They want to just be so reactive. Like, whoa. I'm like, what? And then after so many times of that, it's funny to hear them joke because they're like, yeah, it's fucking the most annoying thing he does, but it's going to work out. So they're not fully immersed into my life, but they've just seen me do it enough. They're like, yeah, I don't know, it's fucking annoying. It's going to work out. I don't know, but I don't know how he does it, but it will. So it'll be fine. That gives me a lot of joy. So, and then maybe you can make an impact on those guys. Like, hey, like don't sweat the small stuff. I think it's a book like that. Like, don't sweat the small stuff. Kind of go through. And again, it's always it's victim mentality happening. You hear that stuff all the time, like happening to you or happening for you, right? I talk about this on stage a lot too. Like in life, there are only events that happen. It's the emotions and the actions that we attach to those events that determine if they were a positive or a negative thing. If I would have stayed a miserable fuck and moved home, action with my mom, me losing $2 million probably would be a negative thing. I did two different things than that. And it's one of the most positive things that ever happened to me. And I can give you 20 other examples like that. And your audience and listeners have those things too. And you could probably look back at them and say, yeah, wow, if I looked at this perspective, it could have been a bad thing. Or something that was good could have been bad. You could have got a fucking promotion that you thought was so good, then fucked you because you didn't fucking take the step, right? Like these things. So think about that, go through and play those scenarios back in your head and like, okay, cool. Now when I'm faced with the next fork, maybe I fucking zig instead of zag.
Mm-hmm. That's so 100% correct. And I love that you said that because I feel exactly the same way about the situations that are most impactful from the negative standpoint is that if we have the right perspective and we can change it, and if we can have a perspective of, it's all going to work out, then, ultimately those worst moments in our lives can be the jumping off points. I mean, that's happened in my life too, where every terrible thing that's happened to me has ultimately been, a precursor to the best things that have happened to me. And I think that could be true for anybody.
No, exactly. No, I mean, like you see this every time. Yeah. Whenever the business has had the biggest set of growth or the biggest change, it's off the back of something happening. It's almost always. I'm sure there's answers like, hey, listen, it's this. What do we do with this? Sales are down, so we come up with this thing. We had this, and then that thing was the thing, right? Or this failure or this misstep that we had this lens on it. We put a different lens on it, and it did something else. Almost always. That's where you have these fucking Netflix, right? Like, that's probably a famous one. I don't fucking getting DVDs in my mailbox anymore, right?
Right.
Fucking doing okay, right? Huge pivot. Yes. Huge pivot. Look, and they got laughed at. They didn't fucking care. Yeah. Blockbuster told them to go fuck off, right? And they like that's great. How's Blockbuster doing these days, right? I mean, like that whole idea of what's the other famous one with Napster, right? With Sean Park, right? Fucking Tower Records, and yeah, fucking who wins? Well, fucking how many Tower Records do you see?
Right.
Right. Who won? I don't know. Who won?
I mean, yeah. Apple eventually wins everything, right? I guess.
Yeah. That's true. That's a whole other podcast.
Right. This is brought to you by Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I love that advice you have too about the people in your life, the people you work with who are, bringing the negatives, bringing all that kind of stuff. And just kind of letting it like almost be a cloud. Like you can let it kind of say, oh yeah, it's going to be all right. So it'll be all right. Because that's so true. It ultimately can be, and they come around. But man, yeah, I'm guilty of that too, where I just fall into this trap of like listening to all that negative, and then it just consumes me for a while. So it is work to kind of get beyond that. It feels like, yeah. So you have so your book, Without a Plan, you've this is a story of your life, how you grew up, kind of the blue collar family, kind of goes into greater detail. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I'm super happy with it now. I fucking hated it doing it. If you have any enemies, recommend writing a fucking book that'll really fuck them. So we wrote it, publisher kind of came through, and the first book I threw away because it was all the business stories of it. It was a business book, and that's what it was meant to be. It turned into a memoir. Not because I'm fucking cool, but because I felt like it was bullshit because I only told you about the accolades and the this and the that, all the cool things that I've done, which is fucking none of what had been brought to you either by Apple or without me fucking going through some shit, right? Whether I had a failed marriage and fucking not be, I mean, all just bad stuff emotionally, dealing with my dad, or actually not dealing with my dad, dying for so many years. So that was a piece. And that's what Forbes had at the top 3 business books of 2023, which I'm very, very proud of. And I think why it was, but it wasn't, it's lots of business book. It's relatable to, stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home husband. It's you don't have to be some hard-charging CEO. There's a lot of stuff in there for that person, but it's been a journey to kind of share my authentic self, and that's I think what everyone should kind of hope to be. Because I don't care. You like me, don't like me, and if you do, I love you. If you don't, fucking cool. Fucking go like somebody else, and that's okay. That's life. That's human. But being able to have that vulnerability, I think that's the biggest piece. I was not like a lot of this is like fear and like, looking back and that confidence. I didn't hate myself, but I did not ever want to feel emotion, because if you don't feel emotion, you can't ever get hurt. Really fucking safe place. Right. Fuck place to live. And then you do a lot of fucking drugs and alcohol and all the other stupid shit. But I wouldn't, because I got so fucked with my dad leaving, and I didn't want to be a burden to my mom and all those other pieces that some of you can't have the emotionally intelligence to go through. So then the idea that now going through a whole emotion, the attachment styles that people have, I'm an emotional attachment. No, the emotional attachment styles you have. I forget what I am.
It's like anxious attachment or
yes, exactly.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I'm anxious attachment.
Gotcha.
So like, as long as I'm getting love, all kinds of things, I feel safe. But the moment I don't feel that, I think something's wrong and you're going to hurt me. So as opposed to you hurting me, I kill you, or not physically, but I kill you in my life. I don't talk to you and whatever. Yeah. And there's a great way to go through life without having any emotion, right? Like fucking super. Right. But like, so yeah. And that's why I threw myself in, and work was my drug for a long time too. And now it's like, I landed on my plane, dropped my kid off to school, and I'm doing a podcast with you. So I'm like, maximizing as much stuff I can and taking experiences in and whatever. But it was good. So it's everywhere you can buy books. Audible, David Goggins, publisher, same one that did my book.
Yeah.
And
I went through the same company, by the way. Yeah, they're great.
That's right. Yeah. They're awesome. I don't think they're around anymore.
No,
I had some term. But I stole what he did on the. I stole what he did on the. Podcast style. So I didn't want to, I didn't read it myself. I had someone narrate it, but we did like that kind of question answer afterwards, which was really cool.
That's such a great format. I love that. Yeah.
So you get some like behind the scenes stuff. So yeah, check it out on Audible if you can. And hopefully you'll get a lesson or two in there, and not what to do, not what to do, what not to do. Fucking stick to that thing, and then you'll be great.
So yeah, I mean, that's a great perspective as far as like, learning from the failures. And how long did it take you to write that book? I mean, you mentioned kind of tongue in cheek, and I totally agree with you. If you have any enemies, recommend that they write a book. But how long did it take you to find it therapeutic at all? Or
I think 18 months. Took me 18 months because I had to do a complete rewrite because it just wasn't happy. And I was like, thinking about, do I tell this story? Because like some people that like my friends like, fuck, bro, I can't believe you said that. I fucking like, yeah, I didn't. You may not like the book, but I thought of this as my enemies reading it. Like, oh, he's like, I want you, like, you fucking, this is who I am. Like, this is every story. You're not gonna tell anything on me that I can't tell on myself. So I wanted to be in complete control of it. So you may hate me, but you fucking can't call me dishonest, right? Because I laid it all out there. So yeah, 18 months. And did I find it therapeutic? Therapy, like, I think is what helped me. And I gave a huge shout out to my therapist. And I think that's really what happened. I think it helped me. It helped me probably by putting it out there and kind of saying it. I still had a level of people in which I say, I don't care what people think about me. I fucking probably do still, right? I think we all have that. And that's part of the drive, like why I want to do more and just kind of be bigger than anything else, and like need someone to go and chase after, because I want to, I've got something to prove, and that's probably the little 7-year-old in me. But I think it's actually allowed me to be like, I think if someone didn't like me, I would try to win them over, right? There was still that thing like, well, Adam, I know you probably heard this from my ex, or you heard this, whatever, but you don't know about this. I think it's given me a thing like, you know what? Fuck off. And the truth about me is out there. If you actually are worth carrying and go through, you can find it out. If you don't, that's okay. But I don't have to go and tell my story anymore. I did it once. It's out there. You know what I mean? I think that's how it helped me. And it's a great question, Adam. I appreciate that, because I've never looked at it that way, but I do think that's happened, right? It wasn't therapeutic in the fact like I really dealt with something that I didn't see, because I did so much of that in therapy. But the idea of being vulnerable, I think that's what helped me from that piece. And I did it in the lens that, Forbes wrote it, wrote a great article about it. That's awesome. I really wrote it for my kids, who are younger. I mean, they're 10 and 5 now. So just for the language, I don't want them to read the book right now, but later in life, I wrote it for them on just like, owning up for your things you've done, and like, just almost like a things, you wish your dad told you type of stuff. Like that's it. So that's the real reason I did it, which is often there's a level of therapy there too.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I love that. And I want to go out and get the audiobook, because I love the way that's the format in which you're doing it. But I also love the books that share vulnerably, like the way you're talking about, that really go deep into the heart of it. And I think that's as powerful that you would share it, or that you would write it in the perspective of, this is the kind of stuff I want to share with my kids, because everyone else can learn from that too. I feel like, so.
yeah. And that was a hard part.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a hard part because, I talk about some fucking crazy nights and taking a jet to Vegas and doing like wild nights. I've talked about those things, and drugs and these things, but like I too close down. I had to still go get the book, please. It's Christmas time, guys, help me out. But like I talk in the book, like, hey, like, while this, my life is, I forget how I worded it, but a lifestyle of, rock star, sex, drugs, and rock and roll makes for a good story, doesn't make for a good life. So like, I try to bring it back into that perspective. So like, hey, there's some lessons to be learned. Like, hey, like, yeah, just because you're saying this, I'm not necessarily glamorizing them at all. Like, I was doing all of this shit because I was really a miserable fuck, right? And like, I was so unhappy, and how you don't need to have those things, and putting that into that perspective.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great. And I would encourage everyone to go out and get the book, learn about Jeremy's life, because we really only touched the surface here. And I think we go a lot longer. I have so many other questions for you, as far as like, all these different directions, the different parts of your life.
Let's do another one. Yeah. It's been a great conversation. I'd love to jump back on.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate you being here, Jeremy. And where, in addition to getting the book on Amazon without a plan, where can people find you?
I'm Jeremy S. Delk on all socials. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and jeremydelk.com.
Awesome. And you're speaking on stages, and people can, just see a lot more content from you that way. And yeah, so please check out jeremydelk.com. Check him out on the socials. Get the book Without a Plan. Jeremy, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so grateful for this. This was great. I appreciate you sharing.
My pleasure, Adam. Thanks. Had a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. If you enjoyed and got a lot from this, and feel like someone else out there can get a lot from this episode also, please share it with a friend. And we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again. Thank you so much for joining me today on Flow Over Fear. If you are liking this show, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll be first to know when I drop a new episode, including interviews or trainings or dad jokes. That's right, dad jokes. Add a little levity to your life. And if you liked this episode in particular, and you think somebody can get something from it, please share it with a friend. And that way we'll spread the message together. Thanks again for joining me today. We'll see you next time.